Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today what we're going to do is talk about complex numbers, and we're going to create a flip book to help us get all the highlights down. Okay, this is not going to be as difficult as it might look, so don't panic. I'll walk you through it, and don't forget, you can always stop and rewind and replay the parts that you need to in order to get this done well. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your blank sheet of paper and you're going to fold it hot dog style, so that's the long way. Fold it in half. Once you've got that done, open it up, fold it backwards. And why we do that is it'll make it easier to cut. You won't have to fight the fold as much. So then go ahead and take your scissors. Cut right down the fold. You should have two halves. If they aren't perfect, that's not a problem. It'll work out just fine. So you're going to take one piece and you're going to take that and fold it hamburger style. But watch how I do this. I'm going to try to make the part that's under the fold part, this part right here, and this part, the actual flap part, be the same size. Again, doesn't have to be an exact science. Just eyeball it so that the flap area is about the same size as the area underneath the flap. Okay, part that's showing, I should say. Then you're going to take your second one and you're going to fold it not to the same size, but you're going to drop that down a little bit, so about half of the distance down. Okay, so here's the bottom of both sheets. I have one side is the same size as the part that's showing, but my second sheet, my second sheet is only going to be about half that size showing. Alright, now you're going to take your glue, and I know some of us are having gluing issues, so listen carefully. We're going to take that glue, and we're just going to draw a bead of glue down the crease of the first one you folded, the one that has the same size areas. Just going to draw a bead of glue. Put the second piece in the crease, fold over. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 flaps. Okay. Grab a color and title your book Complex Numbers. Okay, complex numbers. On the flap, the first flap that's showing, so here's that one, on that second flap on the part that's showing, take another color and title it, What is That? So we'll do a little bit of a description about what a complex number is. Okay. Next one down, the next flap, you're going to write adding and subtracting. Okay. And the last one, you're going to write multiplying. And again, anytime you need to stop the video so that you have time to complete the different tasks, you go right ahead. I'm just going to keep going so that I'll go as fast as you guys need me to go. Alright, first flap, we're going to flip up. Okay, and we are going to write just basic pencil. We're going to write some information, but you want to have 2 different colors ready. Okay. So what we're going to write at the top is what a complex number is. It is a combination of real and imaginary numbers. Okay? So it's a combination of real and imaginary numbers. Now with one of your colors, you're going to write an A about middle. Then this guy, and then another color, you're going to write the second part. So A is in one color, plus is just your basic old pencil, and BI is in another color. All right. With your first color, you're going to label that A. That A is representing the real part of a complex number. The BI is representing the imaginary part. Okay, so you have a real part and you have an imaginary part. When we write complex numbers, we are always going to use this format. So the real part will always come first. And I'll do a little side instruction about the real number system versus the imaginary number system. But for right now, what I want you to do is to write, put a star under that, and say always write the real part first. Always write the real part first. That's very important. Okay? Always write the real part first. Then just above the fold, still on that top part of the flat, I'd like you to write that all numbers are complex numbers. Okay? So all numbers are complex numbers. So your top flap should look like mine. Exactly. All right. Add underneath the fold, I'd like you to write example. Okay. So example, we're going to write the number 6. We're going to write over to the right a little bit the number 7i. Okay? I'm going to try to do a little bit more color here just to kind of let our eyes see what's happening. So for the real number here, the 6, I'm going to use the same color I used for the real part up here. So I'm going to use my light blue. And I'm just going to indicate that, hey, that 6 is a real number. Okay? But it's not just a real number. According to that last note that we wrote up here, all numbers are complex numbers. So we also want to label this as complex. So this is a real number and a complex number. And I'm going to use the same color that I used on my title page for that. Okay? So real number and complex number. Now, if all numbers are complex numbers, then they should all be able to be written this way, A plus BI, real plus imaginary part. But for 6, there's no imaginary part. It's still a complex number because if we wanted to write it as a complex number, what could we add to this that would not change its value? Hopefully you said 0. Because we want it to be the imaginary part, it's actually going to be 0i. So underneath complex number, you're going to write imaginary part equals 0, I. Okay? Imaginary part equals 0, I. For the 7I, I'm going to take my imaginary color and write imaginary number. Again, this is going to be a complex number because all numbers are complex. So now you have something that looks like this. Okay. Now, for the 7I to be complex, if we wanted to write it in the complex format, we would have to make the real part equal to 0. Okay? So your flip book should be starting to look like this now. All right. Last thing we're going to put on this flap is an actual full-fledged complex number with all the parts. 3 plus 7i. Okay? This is neither real nor imaginary. It is complex because it has both real and imaginary parts in it. Okay? When you are done with that, you've got your title, you've got your flaps labeled, you have the top finished, and you have this section finished above what is that. Please take this up to the substitute. Let them see that this has been done. Also, let them see that you have your warm-up questions finished with complete sentences. When that's done and the substitute has checked you off on that, then you can go ahead and take your 5-minute break. Come on back, start me up again, and we'll finish it.